Hey guys, welcome to the December 12th analysis. It is 12/12 of 2012 today, so we got an interesting date to do our analysis on. That makes it a little more exciting, I guess. But in today's analysis, there's a few things I want to show you. One of the pairs I want to take a little bit deeper look at is this pound odd, which is not one we always cover. A lot of times we talk about the euro odd rather than the pound odd because I trade that more often. But the pound odd is in an interesting little bind right now, and I want to draw your attention to that. So we'll cover that, and then of course we'll cover more of the major pairs too, especially the pound dollar. I'm going to look at the 4-hour chart and the daily chart and maybe even the hourly chart on that one, just to give you a breakdown of what's going on there, because with some of the US dollar strength that built up toward the end of the day today, it's created an interesting situation on that pound dollar, and so I definitely want to show that to you. Okay, so we're going to get into all of that, and so we're just going to start off with our news as always first and see what we got going on tomorrow. Alright guys, and the main pocket of news that I want to call your attention to tomorrow is at 8:30 a.m. Eastern Time, where unemployment hits, retail sales hits, PPI hits, and core retail. So there's 4 US dollar red tagged events all occurring at 8:30 a.m. and that'll probably be, you know, the main announcements for tomorrow. Now, later on, there is a little bit more news. You can see that at 8:45 p.m. we have some news. And then, of course, in the London session a little bit earlier, we have some news here as well. But the main pocket of news is going to be that 8:30 a.m. US dollar news. And assuming that, you know, some of those correlate and go together, and, you know, maybe 3 out of 4 are a deviation to one direction or the other, that will certainly, you know, provide a great spike in the market. And in my opinion, oftentimes that confirms technical analysis. So you want to have your sound US dollar technical analysis ready for that pocket of news, and be ready to take advantage of it. Alright, and then next I just want to cover our terms, which, as you know if you've been following the analysis, basically the point of the terms is just to be very clear and tell you, that we're not licensed or registered to provide any investment advice for you. We haven't gone through any kind of strict policies or regulation. We haven't filled out any forms in order to be allowed to give investment advice. We're not advisors. We're just, traders who run a website, and we're sharing our personal perspective of the market with you for free. But that's not to say that you should risk your own money on it. Okay? The United States government is very strict about many of their policies, especially when it concerns risk. And so this is one of them. So it's very important that you understand these terms, and if you need to pause and read through them carefully, please go ahead and do that. Alright, so with that said, let's jump into the charts and see what we can see. The first thing we're going to look at today is the pound odd. And as I mentioned, we're in a little bit of an interesting situation. If you look at the pound odd, we've been in this range now for a little over a month, pretty much back and forth in between the 154.5 area and the 152 area. And the pound odd is typically a pair that moves quite a bit. You can see previous moves, a lot of swings, but we've been struggling here for a while, and so I just want to try to shed a little bit of light on that. One major thing to note is that we have a lot of corresponding support and resistance levels right here in the level that it's sitting at now. You can see that from this swing to this swing, the 50 fib lands right in here. And then from this swing to this swing, the next swing, the 50 fib also lands right here. You pair that with this point here and some of the other points here, and even a little farther back. If I scroll back, you can see a few more points. For instance, here, all of that combined together basically is pointing out that this is a major level. So that's the moral of the story. And so I think that the pound odd is one that is more about patience over the past month, obviously, considering these circumstances. However, like I always say, when these are struggling in these zones like this, that often creates the best opportunities for a breakout. For instance, we do have this downward pressure from this recent swing, and a lot of channeling here, but if it breaks out and continues the momentum from up here, we could see a surge all the way toward previous lows around 148. So to me, that provides a lot of potential if you're willing to wait for that setup, which I am, and I think that you should be too. So just pay attention, make sure you know all the levels here. Don't be satisfied until there's a good price action break, and when it happens, be willing to take a great entry with a good risk reward ratio. And I think that you'll be happy with the profit potential that's there. Okay, so that's the pound odd. Now we're going to switch over to the pound dollar. It's amazing how different those two charts are. Okay, so first look at the pound dollar on the daily chart, and you can see that we're still looking at this trend break. It was actually a very good break, a nice retest, and a good continuation. So this is about as perfect as it gets when it comes to upward trend breakouts. You want a good breakout on a strong bar, which we got right there, and then typically you want it to come back and retest, which it does with a good tail bar right there, and then good continuation, which we've had 3 bars up, covering those previous highs from the first breakout. And so everything looks great for pound dollar bullish continuation, except for one thing, and that is that we have a major level here. I'll just draw it using this line right here, and you can see that we have this top right here, this top right here, and now we're running right up against it. Now, on a daily chart, it looks like price might just be backing off a little bit, but let me switch to the 4-hour and show you how this actually looks. So it's amazing. You look at the 4-hour and you get a totally different look. On the 4-hour, it actually looks like we have pretty much a ranging market. It doesn't look like a bullish breakout like you see when you move just one time frame up and look at the daily. Well, maybe 2 time frames depending on if you use 8-hour charts. But anyway, just a few time frames up, and you get a whole another view, which to me, is always interesting. That here it just looks like we're in this ranging market, whereas on the day it looks like we're in a long downtrend and then a strong breakout to the upside, which I just don't get that when I look at the 4-hour. But anyway, here you have this triple top, and I'll just draw that again. 1 and 2 and 3. There's our triple top. And so what's interesting about this is not only do you have the triple top, not only is this a major level in this area that you might be looking at, but when you look at price action, let's zoom up and take a look at price action. There's a lot of momentum headed down right now. You can see that we had this tail bar right off this support. It continued up, but immediately this was rejected with what I call a twin tower bar, moving right back down with a lot of momentum. It's actually eclipsing the low right now on this twin tower type of setup toward the downside. So to me, that means there's a lot of bearish potential. Even though I'm looking at the daily and I'm noting the long term, this makes me think twice about it, because this 4-hour chart right here showing a lot of momentum. Now, we do still have to watch these tops, which will come into play if it continues to move down. But if this 4-hour were to continue and break through this level, it could go down quite a bit. I mean, it could even break back in toward our long-term downward trend if we get enough momentum. So that's a major setup occurring right now, and it's one that I would not neglect just because the overall daily is looking a little bit different. Now, some of the news we get tomorrow could certainly play a pretty nice effect on this. I mean, if there's really positive U.S. dollar news and moves the U.S. dollar stronger, the pound dollar could drop in a hurry because it's already somewhat overextended just based on that bullish break that we talked about. So it could crash pretty easily with the right news, and that is something that I will be definitely paying a lot of attention to, and I'll certainly keep you guys informed on that as well. Alright, and so with that said, let's go ahead and move over to the euro-dollar chart and see what we have going on over there. And I'll just cover the daily chart briefly because there's not a lot to say here. We have this range. It's what I noted yesterday and the day before as we were talking about this. And basically the only thing to do now is to look for short potential up in the top range here. Look for buy potential down in the bottom here. And then if it breaks out, kind of change your mindset and look for continuation setups rather than ranging setups. But until that happens, I would keep an eye on these two levels and make the trades respectively. And that's about all there is to say about the euro dollar. Okay, so the next thing I'm covering is the euro pound daily chart. And so first of all, I just want to acknowledge this trend line, which I try to acknowledge each time we look at the euro pound. To me, it's a great trend line. You can see the amount of times that it's been tested and touched and bounced, over and over again, really. This trend line has been tested. So to me, this is a great level in the market and something that's always worth paying attention to. Now, the euro pound has been moving up quite a bit since it made its peak down here around 79.70. It made this great move up, a strong pullback. If you remember, that euro weakness kicked in, and now we're on the way right back up. So to me, this major level here you see I have highlighted is probably the most likely target where it's going to head next. Now, I haven't checked the Fibonacci on this recent little pullback. Typically, I don't look at the fibs on these but I figured this one might match up, and it does. You can see that it came right down to the 61.8 on this recent little swing, and that's where it's bouncing. It bounced from the 61.8 all the way through the 38.2 and is now looking toward higher highs and continuation. So to me, that is actually a pretty solid signal that this thing is trying to get back up and test this level again. Now there's other levels in between. You can see right here is a little bit of a level, and even over here, but this highlighted in pink, this level is really the major level, which is near 81.50 that euro pound has pulled price into, and so that's what I'm going to keep an eye on. Now I'm also still not counting out the fact that euro pound could break right through this level, and to me that would be great, because if you remember, during this uptrend, there was a lot of consistency. The swing was very consistent. It kept making higher highs, and when it finally actually broke lower here, one thing I was noting was that until it breaks this low here, really the previous low in the swing, it's still an uptrend. It's not honoring the trend line, but it still isn't an uptrend overall. It's still moving up. And so I still believe that, which means that if we get a break of this major level, which has not been broken in a long time, there actually might be some very strong continuation of this uptrend, and the euro pound might be one of my favorite pairs to buy once again, above 81.50. So of course that's a lot of assumptions, and I'm not suggesting that it's going to happen anytime soon, but I just want to clarify that it's very possible for the euro pound to make a move toward higher highs, even though it's been even though it's somewhat recent that it broke with a lot of momentum. It broke down through our trend line that we were watching. Now another thing to note is that you could you could draw a trend line here and actually consider this a wider trend line. Now I don't buy into that because of how many times it tested this area. I don't think that this black line is a legitimate trend line, but a year from now this black line could be a very legitimate trend line. It could have been tested 100 times, and price could be over 1 on the euro pound. So you can't count it out, and I'll keep an eye on that. But watch that euro pound. Sometimes it's a little tricky, but once it starts moving, it tends to be pretty consistent. So do not take your eye off euro pound. Alright, so that's the euro pound. That's the major level near 81.50 to watch. And now let's head over to pound New Zealand. Okay, so on the pound New Zealand, I just want to take a zoomed out look here first, just to show you this line and where I'm getting these points. 1, 2, 3, and now testing 4th. That's where this trend line comes from. And now let me zoom up on it. Okay, so on the closer view, you can see we're right there. It depends on how you draw the line. You can move it up and down a little bit. As a matter of fact, I actually moved it down a little bit today just to make it fit a little better. Which trend lines are very perspective oriented, so you can do that. But the way I have it drawn right now, we're right there. Also, you could say that we're a little bit through. You could draw it so that it's a little bit higher. But anyway, moral of the story is that we're testing this trend line either way. No matter how you draw it, we're in that area. And now the question is, do we get a bounce toward toward the highs, or not toward the highs, but toward higher highs, or do we get a breakthrough and look for shorts? And obviously what I'm going to look for to tell me that is the candlesticks. Right now we're sitting on it, so by the end of the week we might have a lot more clear direction, and I'll keep you updated on that. But my advice on the pound New Zealand is just don't trade it yet. Just wait for a more clear signal, and then go ahead and take it. Okay, you can see that odd has broken out to some extent. Not a great strong breakout, but has definitely moved above this level, 105. Next major level, it appears, would be right here. That's kind of a double test of the tops, and so we'll see if price can make it up to there. Right now, dollar is pretty strong. The U.S. dollar is pretty strong, so it's pushing it back down right now. We'll see if it can muster up the strength to at least come back and test, and then perhaps move lower. Not sure if that's going to even be a possibility, because if the U.S. dollar continues to gain strength, this thing might crash right down toward low lows without ever even getting up to test that level. But that's the odd dollar, and that's the level that I'm keeping an eye out for right here, which is about 106.10. That's about the exact price, so keep an eye on that one. Okay, and lastly, what I want to show you is the US dollar, Canadian dollar. You know that yesterday in my analysis I predicted a bounce on the USDCAD once it came down and tested this 50 fib level. So today it got down there. FOMC actually pushed it lower, came down, definitely spiked through, and is now trying to bounce up. So my prediction is not right yet, but we'll see. It looks to me like it's certainly trying to bounce. And so assuming that there's continued movement to the upside, I think a long off this level and targeting the next level and a quick bounce is certainly a nice trade potential. And I'm going to keep an eye on that one on the USDCAD continuously. Let me show you the 4-hour chart of this. It's even a little more convincing. And so what I like about the 4-hour chart is that there's not a lot of great bars. We did have this bounce right here, which is a nice tail bar off the first, the 61.8 fib. But since then, there's not been a lot of bullish movement. Now, we got down this FOMC bar right here, pushed right to the 50, and was immediately being pushed back by the 4-hour. Not closed yet, but immediately being pushed back by the 4-hour bar. So if we get a close of this 4-hour bar, up into here or even higher, to me that's showing that it's trying to push this back up and at least get a retest of our previous level here at the 61.8, which to me is a pretty high probability setup. And that's what I like about the USDCAD. I'm going to keep an eye on this 4-hour, and assuming that it closes to my liking, I will be taking a long position and targeting right back up to the 61.8 fib level, which for me sits exactly at 98.96. Okay, so I'll leave you with that. That is today's daily analysis. I appreciate you stopping by and checking it out, and please do leave a comment with any thoughts or questions. Thanks. Talk to you soon.